This recording here. Okay, good afternoon. I'm Cindy Speaker, the editor of Law Firm Marketing Magazine, and I have the distinct privilege today of interviewing a dear friend and respected colleague, Mr. Ken Hardison. Ken, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, before we get started, I want to say that Ken has not only run a successful law practice, actually several of them, but he is also the founder of PILMA, which is, in my opinion, the very best organization out there for helping trial lawyers with their A to Z plan. So Ken, help me out here. PILMA stands for Personal Injury Lawyers
Marketing and Management Association.
Marketing and Management Association, right? Okay, so I absolutely loved your new book, and that's the focus of what we're going to be discussing today. And I believe that at the end of this interview, you're actually going to tell us, well, we can see it on the screen. Well, our Periscope people cannot see it on the screen. Our GoToMeeting people can see it on the screen, but we will be talking about how to get the book at the end of this. So,
yeah, absolutely free. I even pay the shipping.
Wow, so, that's a pretty good deal. Absolutely free.
Yep.
Very good. Well, I actually want to start out by talking a little about the introduction because I read the book last night and I loved it. And I really, having known you for many years, I really enjoyed hearing about your background and your youth. And it was fascinating. The one thing that I think really came clear to me is I now understand where you got your powerful work ethic. Because you were really, I mean, you worked very hard as a young person.
Had no choice. Yeah, I did. I had no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to if I wanted to make it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing was interesting is that you were a star athlete.
I was okay. Oh, yeah, I mean, I made all conference. I mean, I was never, I could have went to a small college for football, but I knew I wasn't going to make any money at it, and I knew I had to get out and make a living, and so I just I played. I enjoyed my high school days. Though.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
No, that's good. Well, I saw you were captain, and
yeah.
You're minimizing a little bit, but the I often see that that so often I see top performers have been athletes. So that I think that's a common denominator with many top performers.
Yeah, it's I think it teaches you teamwork and leadership and that competitiveness. I've always been very competitive.
Right.
You know, I always say second sucks. Excuse
my
language.
Right.
But I've always been competitive. My best friend says I'm the most competitive person he's ever seen. I'm getting a little bit easier about it in my older age, but I still like to win. I mean, I play my boys. I got two sons, 32 and 35, and I still try to beat them in golf. and I can do it about half the time. But I always like to win.
That's
I never
great.
let up. Yeah.
Well, Ken, tell us why you wrote the book.
I'd written a couple other books, but they were more tactical about do this, like little tactical things you can do. But people really want to say this. Tell us really how you built this law firm, because there's a lot more into it than just marketing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I was doing a mastermind with Jay Abraham, who you know very well.
Sure.
And he's real big on this doctrine of preeminence.
Yes.
And so I was in this mastermind one day. That's all we were talking about for 2 days was preeminence. And I said, this is how I built my law firm, but I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. I didn't know that's what it was called. And I said, I'm going to write a book on it. And we were talking to him. He said, you really ought to write a book on this, Ken. He said, because, you've lived it. You've actually implemented this, and you could help a lot of lawyers. He said, because and so I said, you're right. So I actually took his lead, and because the doctrine of preeminence, and we'll talk about it later, is it's the overall deal about building your law firm, it's not what most people think preeminent means, you're the top dog. You are the top dog, but there's more to the doctrine of preeminence than you being the top dog in your market.
Right.
A lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things you talked about is another, I think somebody that we both admire, another one, and Jay Abraham, yes, is a huge mentor of mine, someone that I admire greatly. But another one is Michael Gerber, and he talks about working on your business instead of in your business. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was like a wake-up call for me in 1996 because I was just, as you said earlier, I was a workaholic. I mean, I was working first 10 years of practice. Uh, I didn't take a vacation, and I look back on it, it was so stupid. But I didn't know anything other than I was competitive. If I wanted to get to where I wanted to get my goals, I just thought you had to outwork the other side, which is not true. It helps, believe me, getting stuff implemented, but I was put in 80, 100-hour weeks and
Wow.
had no systems. I mean, I was building a great law. I mean, I was building a lucrative law practice. I don't know if it was a great one, but I was making a lot of money. But I was killing myself. And I can't remember how I come across this book, but I came across it and I read E-Myth and then E-Myth Revisited, and it just kind of, it was like two of my big aha moments in my life, and it changed everything. And I said, I've got to get systematized
Right.
and so and work more on my business instead of working 80 hours practicing law, because there's just so many hours in a week, and you know taking what I'm really good at and leveraging that versus just trying to do it all and not delegating out. It's because I might could do it better than somebody else, but I can't get to so many hours. So
Right.
if I can get somebody who can do it 80% of what I can do, and then I can review it, then why don't I have four lawyers out there doing work, and I can do four times as much work, and with a fourth of the time, and you only can do that when you got systems. And I had my staff, and so we pretty much from that date on, I've created manuals and processes and procedures for everything in my firm. I mean, I've got a client service manual with processes. I've got the employee manual. I've got a pre-litigation manual. I've got with all the processes, procedures. I got a litigation manual. I got a social security manual. I got a workers' comp manual. Anything that we do, I got a manual on how to hire people, how to fire people, how to train staff, how to train. I've got this whole deal about teaching management to associate lawyers. So I just pretty much systematized everything. So when I had somebody new come in or whatever, we put them through the process. And here's the great thing about it. You don't become so beholding or held hostage, I like to say, by the people that work for you.
Yeah.
Because if you got everything systematized, processed, and proceduralized, then if they get mad with you and leave, or if they do something bad and you have to fire them. I've seen lawyers who I've coached or who've been in my masterminds who says, I just can't afford to fire this person because they just, I don't know what I'll do without them.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bad thing because I told my firm, there's nobody that's indispensable, including myself. Uh, and you look at the really successful lawyers, there's a lot of lawyers that go out and work 20, 30-hour weeks, and they're making a lot of money, and they're having a great balanced life.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, Lee Rosen, I mean, I was just looking at his blog today. I mean, he's out in Berlin, and he's got a heck of a domestic practice in Raleigh, North Carolina. Will hold the whole state. Um, it's it's just so important, and I remember an old story, and I don't think I told about it in my book. Sometimes I tell these stories, and sometimes I don't. But my brother ran a pawn shop, and my uncle had probably a eighth grade education. He was a painter, but he never worked. He'd go out and put the crew to work. He'd come back to my brother, sit around and talk, and just worry him to death. And my brother was just a workaholic like me. It must be in the genes. And
Right.
my uncle sat there and looked at me and said, "Son, you're working so hard." He said, "You're so busy working, you can't make any money." So I think that's what Michael Gerber's saying. You can be so busy you can't make any money, and you can't grow your practice because you're too busy working in it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, then why do you need a firm? You just need to get a job,
Right.
and not have all the headaches. You know,
Yeah.
that's the way I look at it. So that was a big deal. So that's when I talk about working on your business versus working in your
Yeah.
business.
As you talked about that, you talked about mastermind groups. I remember, this was way back, but I remember being in one of the meetings. The different groups that meet as yours does. But this was pre-Pilma days, and I
Right.
remember being in one of those groups that I was attending, and one of the lawyers got up and he said, that, because of being part of that group that met twice a year, it had probably saved him 10 years of ramping learning curves because of what they were able to learn from one another. So I also concur with you. I think masterminds are tremendously valuable.
Yeah, it's one of the key, I'd say, and I facilitate them, but I've been in I spent, well, I mean, I went to Jay Abraham's. I mean, that
Right.
was like $40,000. I've done Dan Kennedy, who's a marketing guru. I paid $30,000 to be in his one year.
Right.
And I, so I've been the strategic coach with Dan Sullivan. So I spend a lot of money on masterminds and workshops and different things because I'm a continual learner. I know that the more I know, the more I know I don't know. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
it sure does. It sure does. I'm right there with
Yeah,
you.
you know. So I mean, I'm always learning new things, and I learn from doing these masterminds. Even though I'm a facilitator, I learn from other lawyers because different lawyers have got different
Sure.
strengths, and they try different things, and they got different. It's like when you pick a jury, you're taking all their life experiences, and that's what they're going to use when they decide your case. Well, if you got all these lawyers in here, 12, 15 lawyers in there in a room set with you, and they got all their life experiences, and they can tell you all what they tried that worked, what didn't work, the headaches they're having, and what they figured out. It really shortens the learning curve, and that's one reason I started the whole PILMA and the masterminds was because when I was trying to build my practice, there was nobody there. My competitors sure weren't going to tell me how to do it, and so I had to go out to other states and visit other lawyers, and then I got the idea of creating this. I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
he really said, Rockefellers and all those guys, all the big barons, they used to get together once or twice a
Right.
year
Right.
and mastermind. And I'm saying, those guys are not, slouches. If they figured it was a good deal, they were already very successful, but they still learn from each other.
Yeah.
And I said, this is the way to go. And I started doing those in 2005, I guess 10 years ago, and I did them for 4 years before we started Pillman. Now now I've got 5 mastermind groups I run.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I really enjoy it. I really enjoy, um, the interaction and getting pulling stuff out of people because you got some lawyers that really want to take over the whole conversation, and I have to keep them kind of, you
Sure.
know, down, and you got some that you have to pull stuff out of. So it's kind of fun to me. I mean, I like all the different personalities, and
Yeah.
they all got something to share if we, and so it's fun. Yeah.
And you're a great conversationalist, and always you have something to bring to every conversation. One of the things that reminds me of another part of your book that I enjoyed so much, you talked about when you first hired Marilyn, your longtime employee, and you went around to it gave you the opportunity to go around to the country stores and sit there and
Yeah.
you said, drink some bottled pop with the local business people, see what was
Yeah.
going on, and building a referral base. And I think that is so valuable. I mean, it's difficult to do the one-to-one stuff, but you were able to do that in the early years. That kind of stuff really pays off.
Yeah, I did because I didn't have any money, and
Right.
and so I was trying to figure out. So I went around to all the law firms and told them I'd take any junk work they have or any
Yeah.
referrals, and then I also went around all the country stores. I was born in the country and raised in a rural area, so I go around to all the country stores and sit around and drink a bottle of pop and see what's going on and talk to people, and never would really try to say, send me your business. I just, I introduced myself, they know who I am, they want to know how, a lot of them knew me, a lot of them didn't, you know, and they knew because I worked at that grocery store as a meat cutter, and they knew I went to school, and then some of them didn't know I'd become a lawyer and all this, and of course they'd ask for a lot of free advice, and I give it to them
Sure.
best I knew. But what would happen is if they had a legal problem, then they would, and I give them my card, and they would call me, and then some, when they had a case or something, because I was friendly to them and helped them out, they would call me up, and I'd got some pretty good decent cases the first year
Yeah.
or two. But I didn't have any money. I had no money. I started my first law practice with $2,500.
Wow.
20, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it was crazy.
let's talk a little bit about a USP because I know you're big on that. Why do you feel that's so important?
Yeah, well, USP, unique selling proposition, although I really don't believe in selling, it's really what it is. It's a differentiator because if you turn on the TV, anywhere you go, you're going to see all these ads with lawyers saying, call us, we care, we're tough, we're aggressive, and they all say the same thing. And so I tell lawyers before they spend a load of money on marketing or anything, you got to create what it is that differentiates you, from all the other lawyers. And it's a hard deal. And in this book, I actually go through and talk about, how you actually do that. Um, and the key to it, is that is that you want to stand out, because here's the question you got to answer. When somebody needs a law, when they're thinking about, they got a legal problem, their number one question is, well, do I need a lawyer? And then their second question, well, if I need a lawyer, why should I pick you over everybody else? And if you can't answer those two questions, you're going to be sorely, sorely at the bottom of your stack of competitors.
Right.
And it don't have to be, like, I can give you some examples. You can be a book. I mean, it's got to, if you offer a free book, that could be something that stands you out from all your competitors. Or you could do, I did this. It's hard to do for non-contingency lawyers, but being a contingency lawyer, I did the 30-day client satisfaction guarantee, client service satisfaction guarantee. And everybody thought I was crazy because I said, hire us. If you're not completely happy with the way we treat you in your case, then, you come get your file, no fees, no cost. But they could do that anyway. Under North Carolina law, the only contract that's not a contract is an attorney fee contract, retainer agreement, because you can just ask for quantum merit, and that's all you get. But I did waive that. But what I found was, in the last 7 years before I sold out my practice in 2010, is we had 2 people ask for the files back, and I cannot tell you, it probably bumped sign-ups 25 to 30%. And it's really, that's really what's called a risk reversal.
Yeah.
But, if you're a domestic lawyer, I mean, what if you say, I'm only going to represent men, or I'm only going to represent women? Or if you're doing Social Security, that's all you do. You say, Social Security is what we do. It's all we do. I mean, all these things,
Yeah.
you could come up with. But the key to it, everybody wants to know what's in it for me. And, if you can answer those questions and figure out what people's pain points are, but you gotta focus in on what something, and it could be something that all the other lawyers are doing, because everybody says, well, we do the same thing. But but it's like, everybody ever watched Mad Men, they talk about the toasted tobacco. Well, all the tobacco companies back then toasted tobacco, but they were the first ones to claim it. And that's what they call a preemptive, because you preempt everybody else from claiming it. And so you could be doing something everybody else. One thing I used to do was, we had a company called medical payments. And so we would do that for free, and everybody else was charging. Or maybe some of them would do it for free too. So half of them were charging, half of them would do it free, but nobody was really touting that they did it for free. So we'd say, hire us to do your rec case, and we'll do your med pay for free. Well, there was probably half the firms out there were doing it for free, but I preempted everybody and said, we'll do it for free. Right. And then if anybody else said it, it's like they're copycatting it. And,
That's great. That's great. That is a great point. The idea of being preemptive, and some of that ties into the idea of niches and the idea of positioning and finding some place that you can kind of own that landscape or that real estate or that territory or whatever it is. Let's talk about the 3 phases of marketing. You go into 3 phases of marketing that you identify in your book. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so I was thinking about, we've got all these systems and everything, and I was reading some book, and they were talking about 3 phases or something, and I got to thinking about it. Everybody, the way I got it set up, the way I talk about it in my book is before representation, during representation, and after representation. And every lawyer is doing some kind of marketing, if it's nothing but giving out business cards, to before representation, because they're trying to get new clients. And so everybody understands that. That's doing everything like, getting leads, doing advertising, yeah, all the different things you do, your website, whatever, all the different advertising things that you do, and marketing, and doing events and speaking and whatever. But then the second phase is jury representation, and what I find out is some people do a really good job getting people in, but then they don't do a really good job of once they get them in their office. They don't give them good client service. They don't, I don't want to use the word brainwash, but educate them and on how that they can help you get more clients, how you can get referrals, work it to get referrals, and create raving fans. Um, and it's all about, if you think about it, if you've got a marketing strategy for that, and I do in my firm, I'm just not marketing them when I get them signed the papers. I'm still marketing to them after they hire me. I'm marketing for referrals and repeat business, or maybe cross marketing other parts of my practices. Um, and I'd say 50% of lawyers do that, and 50% of them don't. But then the third phase is where I see probably 80% of the lawyers fail. And it doesn't make sense, is after they leave you, because, and I don't know why, I don't know if it's, I've had my thoughts, but I don't want to say it because I got no empirical data to back it up. I think it could be because, number one, they just think everybody's going to remember them because they did such a good job, which is not true.
Right.
Number two is they're lazy. That could be it. Or number three, they just don't know any better.
Right.
But wouldn't you think if you've done a good job, you got to rate, if you did your part in the second phase, that you want to keep, like I like newsletters, and I send birthday cards, and I send, like this year we sent Valentine's cards to all our past clients and our present clients. That we love we love our clients and we love referrals. Big heart on it. So what I'm doing is I'm affirming that we love our clients and that they're the most important thing to us. I'm also affirming that I will still, hey, I'm here and I want referrals. And so keeping that top of mind awareness. We send out a newsletter every other month. We send out all the different kind of cards, Thanksgiving cards. So I'm always trying to touch them, probably 10 out of 12 months. And if you can afford it, if you could touch them every month. And you know this, Cindy. But the deal is, and with the newsletter, I put on the front of my newsletter everybody's name that referred us a case since the last newsletter. And so everything I do, I've kind of got something strategically thinking about why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to let them know, number one, that I appreciate the referrals. So when I get a referral, I write a handwritten note. I don't send a form letter or a postcard. I make every lawyer, or whoever gets the case, has to send a handwritten thank you note.
That's good.
It don't have to be long.
Yeah.
Three sentences, but it's got to be handwritten. And then we put them in the newsletter. We say, we want to thank all the people, all our friends, and who referred us cases last month. Here they are, and we put their name. So people like to be recognized, and they like to be, thanked, acknowledged. Acknowledged is the word I'm looking for. So, we do that, and I know it works because one time I had this lady call me up. Her name was Miss Lily. I'll never forget. She says, Mr. Hardison, I referred you so-and-so, and I was not in your newsletter. And I was wondering whether or not they didn't tell you or whatever. I said, no, ma'am, you're right. I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Miss Lily. I'm going to put your name in the next one. I'm going to bold print it so everybody see it. She said, well, I appreciate that.
Oh, isn't that something?
Yeah.
How about that? That's pretty neat.
Yeah. And so, and in our newsletter also, we put down there, we want to be your trusted legal advisor, and if you got a friend or family member or you got a legal question, call us because, and this is where a lot of lawyers, like I say, I've had some lawyers disagree with me. I want to be their trusted legal advisor, even if I don't do, because I mean, everybody specializes, but I don't want them to try to figure out whether or not I do this or try to guess. I just want them to call me, and if I can't handle it, I'm going to send them somebody.
Yeah.
A lot of things are going to happen because of that. Number one, say it's a mass torch case, or say it's a case that, say I don't do PI, but it's a good brain injury case. I refer that out. I get a referral fee.
Right.
Okay. If I refer them to some other lawyer, like I don't get referral fees like a criminal lawyer, domestic lawyer, or wills and estate lawyer, or whatever lawyer, corporation lawyer. That guy is going, and I send him a letter saying, I referred you, Katie. I hope you're able to help her. And then, that's just in case Katie don't remind it, tell him, because sometimes they won't tell people. So I send a letter telling them or a card telling them that I referred them a certain person. Then,
That's great.
and the reciprocity, they're going to be thinking
Absolutely.
about, well, he sends me cases, I'm going to send him a case. I got this, and they don't do my type of work.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. But some lawyers say, no, I've seen somebody say, no, we don't do this. Well, can you refer? No, we don't know anybody. Well, see, that's not the way to run in my opinion. That is a wrong way to run a law practice. That is, you're missing out on loads of money and on loads of referrals down the road, and probably just some referral fees. So, that's the way I think about it, and I think that's the way it should be done.
All these things you're talking about, Ken, they're about systems and building those systems. And when you think about it, a system, I think so often a lawyer, they may discount the idea of going to that effort because it has a small gain for their business. But when you start adding up all those small gains, you've got significant gains. And I think that I really applaud you for the way that you are so firm on teaching lawyers you've got to build systems. I also agree with you on the 80% that probably do not do the after representation part. It's probably higher than that because
Yeah,
few of them don't, and yet what missed opportunities.
yeah, it is. It's just
Yeah.
because think about it, they're going to spend money on trying to get new cases, people that don't know them, when it's so much easier to get somebody that already knows you to
Right.
either send you business or repeat. And
Right.
we do have repeat business.
Yeah.
You don't have to sell yourself. I mean, they already know what you are. They know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about the doctrine of preeminence.
Yeah. So the doctrine of preeminence, and this goes back to being the trusted legal advisor. Jay Abrams says everything you do should be for the betterment of your client. And so that means that, you're there to serve the client. And, we talk about it, but I'm talking about everything from, uh, you know, how you treat them when you sign them up, how you treat them when you, work in the case, and how you treat them after the case. And that's why I put in that thing, I want to be your trusted legal advisor. So the whole deal is you want them to look at you as their family lawyer, even though you might not do something that they want because you want them to call you. And the deal is, yeah, it might take up some of your time, but if you got the processes, I've got a sheet on there for every county around me. And for every practice area, I got one or two attorneys who I know are good, because you don't want to refer them to somebody bad. That'll
Right.
hurt you,
Sure. Sure.
But who I know are good lawyers and will do a good job. And my staff knows that. I mean, I don't even have to be there. I mean, even if I'm not there or the lawyers know it or whatever, they notice. Say, well, we don't do that. Mr. Arson don't do that. But hey, he's got this friend or good lawyer down in Sampson County that does this criminal work, and here's his number, and just tell him Ken sent you,
Hmm.
and he'll treat you right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got the whole system set up, and everybody's got it on their desk, or they got it. I think now we got it on our computers where they can just pull it up, on our intranet instead of
Right.
uh, but when I started out, it was just something that was taped to the on the wall, you know. But that's a system. It doesn't have to be, everything doesn't have to be really fancy with the bells and whistles. A system can just be a sheet, and here's the steps, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Somebody calls and needs a domestic lawyer, refer them to one of these lawyers in these counties, depending on what county it's in or what city it's in. That's a system, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to, everybody thinks the system's got to be all this great big, proliferation of 36 steps to do it. That doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be on computer and all this software and everything. It can be simple.
I think that's a great point because, and as we're getting into this and we're talking more and more, what the last thing we want is for people to feel overwhelmed. But it reminds me of something else that you said in your book, which we have heard, and that is, it's like, how do you get started? It's like eating an elephant. You do it one bite at a time.
Yeah, you do.
You know,
They do.
I have a friend, a dear friend. She's actually 90 now, but she taught me a life lesson that is very similar to that, in that she had a handicapped son that she took care of all her life. And I said to her one day, Shirley, I just don't know how you've done it. And she said, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
I think it's the same concept. You just keep taking those steps forward, and don't be overwhelmed by your end game. Although I do think you need to have the end game in mind.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's always what I look at
Yeah,
when I'm trying to create some kind of strategy, or I'm always looking at what's my end game. And I ask people that, what's your end game?
yeah,
When I'm coaching some lawyers, I said, what's your end, where do you want to be in 3 years, 5 years? And then we work backwards. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. Well, Ken,
uh,
you are someone, and again, I consider you a good friend, and we've known each other for many years, and you're such a loyal. It's one of the things that when people ask me about Ken Hardison, it's one of the first things I say. He is just a good man. He's a very loyal man, and I want to hear you talk about, because you're so loyal, and I think you build those kinds of relationships. Talk about some tips for creating client loyalty.
okay. Well, I got 10 of them that I talk about in the book, and I don't want to belabor them. I tell you, of how I get staff to create it, because and we put it. I think one deal is you want to put it in your core values, and people make fun of me sometimes, or used to, when I talk about core values.
Hmm.
But like this new firm I got, Carolina Disability Lawyers. So our mission, you have all these big long mission statements. You know what our mission is? Our mission is to give the best client service possible.
Yeah.
And our values is dedication to client service, truth, genuine, and compassion. And so when I'm hiring somebody, I'm not just looking at their ability to zip out, you know, a bunch of work every day. I'm looking at what kind of compassion they got, and I test them, and I want to know what kind of values they got. What are their core values? Because, um, I fired one of the best workers I ever had because she was just not good to the clients.
Yeah.
And I think I talk about this in another book. And she was really like put out more work than anybody I'd ever had in my life. I mean, she was just like superwoman,
Yeah.
Wonder Woman. But she was just very curt and short with the clients. And I just, I finally told her, I said, honey, I said, this is back when you could do that. It's 25 years ago. You can't do that now. You get sued. But I said, I love you to death. You're doing great work, but you've got to change. And here's what I'm willing to do. I will pay for you to go to this course, Dale Carnegie course, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I said, and I'll pay for it. And as long as you stay with me, for another year, I'll just give it to you. If you quit before then, or I fire you, then I'm going to take it out of your severance pay or whatever. And I said, or either I'm going to have to let you go. And she said, well, I just can't do that. And I said, well, you're fired.
Yeah.
So it starts with, I think, what and creating your core values is what your values is, and then you make that part of the firm's values. If you got partners, you got to agree on it. But the deal, it's very simple rules. Treat people the way you want to be treated. If not for the mercy of God, I could be in their same shoes. And here's the one about, I stole this one from Jeffrey Gitomer,
Yeah.
is I tell people to, when they're talking to clients, put grandma at the end of a sentence. Like if they say, I'll have to put you on hold for 5 minutes, grandma. Well, you wouldn't tell that to your grandma, would you?
That's
No.
great.
So I tell them to think about when they're talking to somebody. Of course, I have one staff member said, I don't really like my grandma. I said, okay. I said, well, whoever that you really respect, that you got the utmost respect for, that's who I want you to put their name at the end of. I want you to think about it. So, I don't want to get, but they can get a copy of the book. But that's, call people by their names,
Yeah.
build rapport, be sincere, good phone techniques. You want to smile. People can feel your smile over the phone, or they can tell whether or not you're having a bad day. Um, Things like that. But like I hit the two biggest one, I think, is the grandma test,
Yeah.
and just treating people the way you want to be
Yeah.
treated.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I love the grandma test. Did you say you got that from Jeffrey Gitomer?
Yeah, he's a.
That is
It was
great.
he's in one of his books. He's a
Right.
business coach out of
Yeah.
Charlotte, North
Oh, that
Carolina.
is funny. So if you had to boil it down, do you think you could tell us what you think is the key to hiring the right people?
Uh, well, I think I gotta say it in hire slow, fire fast. I think I try to hire people in management, or people that are the upper echelons. I try to hire people whose strengths complement where I have weaknesses. Like I'm not a real big tech savvy guy, so I try to get people around me that are really tech savvy. Uh, I know we need process and procedures. I'm not as good as creating them, but I try to find somebody that's really good at that, somebody that's good at technology. Whereas I'm really good with ideas,
Yeah.
planning, strategic planning, marketing. I love to write. I love to write ads. I love to figure out strategies, and I love testing new ideas. So that's kind of where so I try to surround myself with people that instead of trying to get better at something, I say, forget it. I'm going to take what I'm really good at and leverage that. And then my weaknesses, I'm just going to hire people,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
uh, and let my ego go, and say, hey, you know, uh, I give up, this person's smarter than I am, and I'm okay with that
Yeah.
because I'm writing their paycheck. It's okay,
Right.
you know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and not let it bother me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've done a lot. You've done a lot. You've kind of having built your firm initially from scratch and gone through so many learning curves yourself. Um, what would you say at this point are three of the most cost-effective marketing tactics that you would recommend, and maybe that you even use in your current law firm?
Okay, I think, and it's cost effective.
Yeah.
So that means that there might be something I could get more clients, but it's going to cost me a lot more money. Okay. So I think that's interesting. I guess my number one thing is referrals because that is, but do it, but it's a lot more to it than just saying getting referrals. You
Yeah.
got to have a strategy, and I'm not just talking about from your clients, but from other people, other professionals. Um, Number two, I think, is the newsletter, and where I see lawyers make mistake is they don't do it regularly, or they don't do it enough, and they don't do it long enough because it takes 12 to 18 months for you really to see the big reaping of rewards from doing the newsletters.
Yeah.
Um, and I like the books. We do books, and we put them out. Because little consumer books, we put them out. Like I got one for Social Security, the Ultimate Guide to Winning Your Social Security Case.
Yeah.
We put them out in doctors' offices. We put them everywhere. We do put them out at flea markets. Uh, and what I figured out is about every 25 books I put out, I probably get a case. Um, and the books cost me about $3 a piece.
That's great. That's a
So
great return on investment.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess as far as the top three are cost effective, that would
Yeah.
be it.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the internet, uh, but but I think you've got to be, internet's where it's at now, and if you're
Yeah.
not with it, you're going to be lost. I mean, the whole, uh, not, I mean, and not just PPC, but the SEO and the videos, and you're the guru on all that. I mean, social media, I defer to you because I think you're smarter about that than I am. But I know it's there, and I use a lot of it. I'm really big about, I think you got to get them to your website, but then you got to keep them there.
Right.
And
Right.
I think a lot of lawyers just worry about getting them there, and they're like, well, I got this many visitors, but how many cases did you get? And if you ain't got it set up right and capture, it's some kind of way to capture, uh, turn that prospect. I like to call people that come to your website a what prospect. And then once they fill out something or ask for something, either they do a chat, they fill out a form, or they email, whatever it is, some kind of taking action. Then they become a lead,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then it's your job to convert that lead into a case if you want it.
Yeah.
And I got a different way of doing it than most lawyers, but my theory is the more you tell, the more you sell. So I'm just really trying to educate them, you know, and that's not. There's other ways to do it. I'm not saying that the speed and greed doesn't work. I think it does, and I got power to people that can do it. I'm happy with it for them. That's just not the way I want to do it. I ain't saying it's wrong or right. I'm just saying for me to feel good when I get up in the morning, I'm all about educating the people. So I create all these books and all these reports about like 11 questions to ask the adjuster before you sign anything, 8 questions to ask a lawyer before you hire them, 24 defenses the insurance company's going to use against you, the 9 common myths people apply for Social Security, face, 7 fatal mistakes that accident victims make, you know, how to get your property damage done properly, correctly, you know. So I create all these different reports and little pamphlets and books, you know, and I just keep feeding them information, and it goes back to that preeminence.
Yeah.
Doing it, I want them to look at me as the trusted legal advisor.
Yeah.
So that's in my whole marketing strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm trying to create. Is that sense that, man, you know, this guy's really helpful. He really knows what he's talking about, and everything he's doing is for the betterment of me. He ain't said the first word about money.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he just seems like he's really, and you know, it ain't gonna work every time because some people are just gonna take advantage of you. That's okay too. I mean, you still did something good for somebody, right?
Absolutely.
And that's part of our profession, is helping people.
That's
So
right.
I feel good about it.
Yeah, well, you should. And I can tell for our listeners, for our readers, I can tell you that Under Promise Over Deliver is a wealth of information. This is somebody at the top of his game that has done it from A to Z. And he is, I mean, generously sharing your secrets here. So, again, we can get a copy of the book at underpromisebook.com.
Yeah, you go on there and you fill out 3 questions.
Okay.
And then you'll have it, and then you'll be able to get your copy. And I think basically it is, are you a lawyer? Are you the manager? You know, do you manage your firm and do you market your practice?
So you're giving this book a hard copy free?
Yes.
No shipping and handling? Nothing?
No.
Fantastic. That's fantastic.
As long as they last. I've got 2,000 of them, so as long as they last.
That is an opportunity. That is an absolute opportunity. And Ken, how can they contact you? Because I really think that your mastermind groups and the PILMA organization is a no-brainer for law firms. It's a fabulous organization. How can they contact you and possibly get involved in that?
Just Ken, K-E-N, at PILMA, that's P as in Paul, I-L, M as in man, A.org.
Okay.
Ken at PILMA.org.
Very good. Ken, thank you so much for your time today. It's been enormously valuable.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay.